All right, so we are the Durkee family, Michael and Carmen. We have 4 kids, aged, well, a couple of those ages have actually, one has changed. Faith just had a birthday, but ranged 4 through 9. And we are going to Angola. The target is to be there by the end of this summer, although we really don't have full control over that. Like they said, we've sent our application in for the visas, but it's still en route, and then who knows how long it'll take after that. So a little bit about Angola. It's a little less than twice the size of Texas, so it's a pretty big country, not nearly as densely populated as most states. It was a former Portuguese colony. It was belonged to Portugal for about 400 years. They fought for independence and finally won it in 1975, but then they immediately started a civil war, and it lasted for 27 years. And they've been out of that for about 20 years now, trying to recover from that. They have oil and they have diamonds as natural resources to help them recover, but as you can imagine, those don't exactly reach to all the people in the country. Only a few people actually get the benefit of that, so there's a great deal of poverty. There's a variety of religions there. Actually, quite a few claim some form of religion, but it's not the kind that they believe would change your life, that would actually change the way you behave every day. They mix in their ancient beliefs, their visits to the shaman, their animism, so it's not the form that we would imagine. So there's actually a fair bit of challenge there just to change their view of what Christianity even is. And there's quite a few challenges in the country. The Civil War left hundreds of thousands of landmines scattered all across the country. A bunch of other countries went into Angola to fight there, sort of a proxy war against communism, and it left the country in a big mess. And so there's a lot of landmines. There's malaria kills thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, every year. There's the usual creepy crawlies that you might associate. There's your scorpions, snakes, parasites, different things like that. And like I mentioned, poverty and corruption are a big deal, just constantly trying to fight against that. They have a new president as of a few years ago, and he's trying to fight that, but the court is still out on whether he's being successful in that or not. They have terrible health care, at least for the residents there, the citizens. They have one of the worst infant mortality rates in the entire world. It's all slowly getting better, but really, really quite slowly. So we started our journey here about 4 years ago. I started to think maybe there was something else that we were supposed to do. Changing gears is a good way to put it, like Brother said there. And I started looking at the world map and the idea of trying to pick somewhere in this gigantic world as to exactly where to go and actually know that's where we're supposed to go and not just basing it on who knows what. It was intimidating. But for some reason, Angola, just stood out on the map. It's there, South Africa on the west coast, and it stood out on the map, and so I started researching. Was a little disheartened because I could find no organizations I knew about other than MAF, the airlift organization, but I wasn't a mechanic, I wasn't a pilot, so they couldn't really help me. And as I looked, I could see, so Luanda is there in the upper left, and it's very urban. It's not exactly the environment we wanted. And the further south you go in the country, the more rural it gets, the more basic and primitive things get. And I came up with 3 basic sort of requirements. As I was looking at the country, looking at the options, I thought of 3 things that really needed to be there in order for us to accomplish what we felt we were supposed to and to just live there at all. So my background is in computer science, so I thought I need to teach English and programming. In order to do that, there needs to be a place to do that, some sort of a place where students already gather, a college, technical college, something like that, even a high school or some place where I could teach. And I wanted to, just as Jesus' example, I wanted to find underserved people groups, an underserved people group that we could minister to, specifically make our ministry toward them. And lastly, of course, a place to live. We kind of preferred a rural location, but that wasn't a requirement. We needed the normal access to water, shelter, food, that sort of thing. I imagined that we would have to walk a ways every day to get water and maybe live in a tent for a while. And so we were imagining it would be fairly primitive before we actually looked into it. and then, of course, close to an opportunity for teaching, a college of some sort, and then close enough to one of these people groups so that we could be able to go out there maybe on a weekend or something like that. So then, as we're thinking, we're trying to make sense of this what feels like it's really culminating in a call, and we're trying to understand this. We don't have any missionary experience. Carmen has one short-term mission trip to her name, and we don't have language training. We know a smattering of Spanish, that sort of thing. And we have these young children, which it's difficult enough trying to raise godly children in a society you at least understand, trying to put boundaries in place and things like that in a society you get. The idea of going to a whole other country and trying to adapt to that culture while trying to train up children in the ways of God seemed really challenging. And after 17 years in the industry, we had enough savings and passive income streams that we felt like we were led to provide for a good deal of our own expenses. And so there was the idea that we needed a place that was affordable, and the idea of going out and trying to find a house that was affordable out where we knew nothing about was also very intimidating. Like I said, we found no familiar organizations in the country. And lastly, of course, we were unsure what possible value could we even have. I can teach, I know English, those are skills that they like, but what ministry could we participate in? I don't have a lot of preaching skills. It's just the idea that can we even be productive, useful? Would it be better to just send money, for instance? Was really been a nagging thought in my mind for many months was, I'm willing to go, I'm excited to go, but surely just sending money would be more useful than me going, that sort of thing, because it was a challenge to try to figure out how could we even be of use. And Carmen was going through the same sorts of things, and I'm going to have her share a little bit of what God shared with her because it really touched my heart. I'll let her talk for a few minutes here.
Yes, as Michael said, we were trying to make sense of it all. And there were some really dark days for me. God had impressed upon me very, very clearly that I needed to train the children and guard them from the influences of this world, help them get established. And then he called us to the mission field, and I said, Lord, how am I supposed to do what you've asked me to do when I won't even know the dangers? I won't even know where to look for them. I can't do what you've asked me to do. How does this work? And I struggled with that, and I was trying to figure out, is this God? Is this not God? How does this work? Where do we go from here? How do we make sense of this? And I finally came to the point where I said, best I can tell, God is calling us. So he will help us. He will make a way. And some of the verses that God used to help me was here in John 21, verses 17 through 19. It says, He saith unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved, because he said unto him the third time, Lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Jesus saith unto him, Feed my sheep. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself, and walkest whither thou wouldest. But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee, and carry thee whither thou wouldest not. This spake he, signifying by what death he should glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he said unto him, Follow me. And God used those verses to show me, Carmen, I love your children. I love you. I have everything planned out, even to their death. I said, okay, God. All right, even to their death. And he said, but what about if I call you home on the mission field? I said, Lord, that's a really bad idea. But he said, what about if I call you home on the mission field? And I realized, if he should do that, it's okay. Because he's got it planned out, even to our death, if we will follow him. So I said, okay, yes, Lord, yes. And he showed me that walking with God, it isn't, many times as Christians, you start thinking, well, what have I done for God? This isn't about doing as much as it is about what's in your heart. Is your heart given to God? Are you walking with him? Are you following him? And God is loving and kind. He will be with us. It is a privilege and an honor to serve him wherever he asks us to go. It is his will we seek, not our comfort, not our protection, not how much we can check off that we've done for God necessarily, but what's in our heart. Are we given to God? Then he will guide us where he wants. And if death comes, if hard times come, if good times come, if life comes, it's in his hands. It's for his glory. And that's the point. That's the meaning of it all, that we glorify him. And so then after that was settled, yes, I'm still scared about some things. Some of the snakes have me terrified. But, God is there. He stopped lions' mouths. He saved the children from the burning fiery furnace. And they had said, even if God doesn't do that, we're still going to obey him. Same here. Even if God doesn't do that, we're still going to obey him because it's for his glory that he's asked us to do things. And that's the point.
Thank you. The kids have lately taken an affinity to snakes. They wanted some toy snakes for some reason, so that doesn't help our calm much. So at that point we felt, all right, so this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're not still quite sure where or who or how or when and all that sort of stuff. So then we started to decide, well, where are we supposed to go? So we picked that southernmost city that was on that map. It's called Mononge. And we started contacting organizations. It was late 2019. And we found Operation Mobilization that had been in the country for almost 20 years. And I'd never heard of them before. I looked at their website, their statements of faith, and they seemed compatible with ours. So we thought, well, let's just contact these folks. And so we heard from Wessel and Joan Fundermerva. They have a rural mission base on the edge of town there in Mononge. And this is the thing that spoke to me the most. They had been working on a house, a bigger house, in case a larger family wanted to move there someday. And they had been working on it for 4 years. That is, from everyone I've talked to, that's almost unheard of. The idea of taking, they don't have a lot of resources. They were just taking what they had, building as they could. It's made out of mud brick with a metal roof, and it has 3 bedrooms and everything else we would need. And they started it 4 years ago, 6 years ago now, and it's pretty close to completion. The next thing that I thought was amazing is there is a spring of water right there on the base coming out of the hillside, fresh water, just like a mountain spring. And they drink it straight from the hillside, and so did I, and it didn't hurt me when I was there, and I was amazed by that. Those 2 things seemed like miracles. That I wasn't trying to make roadblocks for this decision. I just said, Lord, these are things that we need. Please provide for them if this is what you would have us to do. And right off the bat, 2 things right there were provided. So they take that water, they pump it up the hillside, and it's fed by gravity into the homes. Most of the homes have at least one spot where it's heated water, and so you have hot and cold running water. It's just extraordinary. Nothing at all like the primitive conditions I would have imagined that we'd have to deal with. There was not one but 2 colleges in the town, which like I said, it's the furthest south major city in the country, which is the more rural, the more primitive. Yet they had 2 colleges, and they had not one but 2 underserved people groups. There was one that had left during the Civil War. They went to mostly Zambia, a nearby country, and they came back after the war. The government said, you're Angolans, come back, we'll provide you land. But that's really all they gave them. They gave them a place to live, but no representation, no help, no support. And so right around the base there is these Luchazi people, who some of them know English because they went to Zambia. But there's a people group right there. And then there's the traditional Bushmen, the nomadic tribes that would have traveled around Namibia, Botswana, Angola. Well, they are now in one spot, and they are within an hour or 2 of the base. And so there's not just 1, but 2. They speak different languages, but we're already going to have to learn Portuguese, so maybe we'll add 1 or 2 of these as time goes by. So we learned about the ministries that they have, and it's quite a list. Like I said, they've been in the country for almost 20 years. They've been in that location for about 17 years. Discipleship is a big part of what they do. Like I talked about, Christianity is not well understood. The idea that it should change your life, that it's a relationship with God, and so they walk beside the new converts and people just wanting to learn about Christianity. They have many discipleship groups, both on the base and out in the cities. They have mission training where students, young adults from all over the country, Angolans, come and live at the base for a year. They've had up to 15 in the past. They have 20 of these students this year, which is extraordinary, and they had just 7 the year that I was there, which was good. It helped me remember all their names. If it was 15, I'm not sure I could have done that. They support churches. As they train people, those people go out and start churches, and then the OM group goes out and supports those churches. They visit prisons, both men and women. They visit hospitals, retirement homes, that sort of thing. They have many children's clubs and camps, both again on the base and out in the city. One of the more interesting things I learned, which really excited me, is they have an academic school. It's government. Well, the government provides the curriculum and they provide some teachers, but the OM folks are in control of it and they're allowed to teach biblical principles along with this basically public school, which was extraordinary to me. And the government knows about it and they support it. And that was an amazing thought, that you could raise up the community children from a young age with biblical concepts taught in their daily academic learning. And they have grades 1 through 3 right now. As they have a new grade, they build a new school building, and they're keeping up with it like that. They also, of course, witness around the neighborhoods, which I did a time or two while I was there. And they teach a wide variety of practical skills. So they're also interested in alleviating poverty and in helping people physically like Jesus did, not just the spiritual aspect, but also physically. So I went to visit in 2020. I first spoke to Vessel in January, and then I was on my way there 2 months later. And so here's a few pictures. Excuse me. Here's a few pictures from my trip. This is more the rural Manonge. So you'll see on the right, that is your traditional building where you got sticks and grass and some twine, that sort of thing. That's about it. To the left of that is this is the style you will see almost universally, and that is it's mud brick with mud mortar and then a metal roof on top. And you see all that stuff on top. That's to hold it down because fasteners are too expensive, so they just hold it down with whatever they can pile on top. And this is what the more modern-looking Manonge looks like. This bridge is actually a 50-year-old bridge. The Portuguese built it some years ago, but it looks very modern. You might see this as a footbridge in Denver or something, so I was surprised by that. And it's surprised over and over again by the mix of old and new that are kind of competing there as they move into the modern world, yet they have all these ancient traditions, ancient villages, because again, the wealth in the country is not being spread around very evenly at all. This is the OM base, a little hard to see. It's the aerial shot. It has a main house, some worker housing over here. It has a soccer field down here. This is the academic school. This was the most recent building there for 3rd grade, and they're building a new row of them behind here. And there is a metal frame, you can't really tell here, for a children's home, basically an orphanage. It was started about a decade ago. The government delayed everything. They got a frame up, and everything slowed down. The donor got impatient, I guess, and so the money dried up. So the frame is there, has been for a decade, and someday they hope to finish it. But right now they're really focused on the academic school. If they can build 7 school buildings, they will become what's called an independent school. The government will have even less say in what goes on there, yet the government will still provide curriculum and teachers that they can then train to teach biblical concepts. This is the main house. I'd like to point out right here is the pipe of where clear water is coming out. That's the excess that's coming from the hillside, so you can just drink out of that anytime you like. This is the view out over the Quebe River Valley from the front yard there. And you see Manonga in the background, and then just the savanna, the rolling hills way off in the distance. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. They will have, I'm sure, someday a very powerful tourism industry, but right now there's still too much going on for that to be a big part of their income. This is the house they're building for us. At one point, they raised the ceiling and added these, I guess you'd call them buttresses on the outside, concrete pillars, and they have the rafters in there, and you can still see the uncovered portion of the mud bricks. So it's in the trees, it'll stay cooler in the summer, it'll be warmer in the winter because of the dense mud bricks. This is one of the academic school classes. This is a group of the academic school kids out front of the school building. And this is the orphanage that I mentioned. It's the frame, very strong frame, still in good condition. Someday, hopefully, will be finished. This is one of the local markets, outdoor markets. Not quite as exotic as I would have imagined in my imagination, but it was very interesting, unlike anything I had ever seen before. Just simple structures for shading the sellers and the produce that they have. The locals live very much subsistently. They have subsistence farming. So they grow what they can, they eat what they need to, they sell the rest at these markets to buy the things that they can't grow, like shoes, tools, that sort of thing. And when COVID hit, this very delicate cycle was interrupted, and it was a real burden to these families that really needed this structure, this market to sell, and these sorts of things were shut down. So many lives were threatened because of that. I think I can get to that in a moment. A couple of kids from the neighborhood. I was told don't take pictures of pretty much anything without permission, just about, especially government facilities and people, but they wanted their picture taken, so I got their picture. This is Joan on the left, and this is Jose. And this is Jose's group. This isn't the OM group. So Joan met Jose. He was teaching, as she puts it, he was under a tree teaching 10 or 20 kids about school things, about God, and she took Jose under her wing, taught him how to do children's ministries, taught him how to teach, and now Jose has his own ministry of, I don't know how many dozens of kids that come to his ministry to learn academic concepts again, and Christian principles. And this is how a lot of rural Angola is teaching their kids. It's just people like this who have a burden for it. There's just not enough money, there's not enough teachers, there's not enough school buildings, so they just go out, they build what they can. You can see this doesn't have its windows finished or anything, but it's a structure, it's protected, and they can teach the neighborhood children both academic concepts and biblical concepts. These are the 7 mission students that were there that year with me. This is Tonilson on the right. You see he's wearing a trench coat. That's because he has malaria in that picture, and he was suffering from the shakes, the chills, the aches and pains in the bones, and headaches and things that go with it, but he was soldiering through class anyway. So I was there in March of 2020, and of course we know COVID kind of took over the world at that time. The very day I was supposed to leave is the day that the country shut down. So I was stuck there for a while. I wasn't sure how long it was going to be. All the domestic flights were canceled, and they wouldn't even let you travel overland. They wouldn't let you out of the province. They wouldn't let you out of your city. So it was a big question mark. I was able to leave after about 2 weeks. I missed both my 8th anniversary and my 40th birthday in Africa. I obviously cut the end of the trip too close to those events, and so I missed both of those. But they threw me a good 40th birthday party, which was probably the most well-attended I've ever had, so it was definitely a blessing. But the real blessing was that after the lockdown is when I had most of the real meaningful conversations, most of the real meaningful experiences. And it was really because of COVID shutting everything down that I felt that real strong confirmation that that's where we were supposed to be. I did finally travel up to Luanda, the big city, with the help of Halo Trust. They are the largest landmine removal organization in the world. I was able to spend 1 day and a night there at their base. Got a few pictures while I was there. These are all their Land Rover ambulances. They would normally be out in the province supporting landmine removal operations. But here they're shut down. There were just 3 expatriates left, 2 guys from the UK and 1 from the nation of Georgia. And so I was able to talk to them about what they did. I had incredible access to their ops room, where they have a selection of things they've pulled out of the ground and off the ground there in the country. And so it was an extraordinary experience to be able to spend time with them. They had nothing else to do, so they were just there to talk to me, pretty much. Here's when we got ready to travel north to Luanda. This is the main guy in charge, Christy. He said, let's get this coronavirus convoy on the road, so that's what we dubbed it. And we're just about to leave. There's my meager belongings on the ground. We took 2 vehicles and started traveling. I've already said it, but the landscape is just gorgeous. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. So varied. There's so much that you would think that you were in Colorado when you saw it, and then you would think I'm in the jungle, and then there's savanna, and just on and on. Very beautiful. This is Luanda, the big city, looking over their harbor. We were in a nice apartment for a few days, waiting for a repatriation flight back. So then I got home, and so after Carmen made good on her threat to spray me down with Lysol at the airport, she made me turn around and sprayed me down with Lysol, and I was like, what in the world happened to this world in the month that I've been gone? Everything's changed. Everything's crazy. So I had 2 questions in my mind. How long is this COVID thing going to last? And we've got our answer now almost. And how soon can we get back? But that was 2 years ago, and it's taken a long time. It's taken a long time to get our passports, to get our visa stuff together, and finally now to send it, and who knows how long it'll take from this point. But Carmen's spearheaded that effort. She's done a really good job of keeping track of all that stuff and keeping us on track for the visas. Like we said, we hope to leave by the end of this summer, but it's really up to the Angolan embassy at this point. We intend to stay for 2 years, maybe 2.5, depending on when a good break would be for us to come back for a furlough. And in the meantime, we've spent time gathering information, talking to missionaries, figuring out what should we bring, how do we prepare for this. We haven't done a whole lot of language study. There's an Angolan there who speaks very good English, and he will teach us Portuguese when we get there. And I did write a memoir of my experience. It's not a very long book, and I think I'll put it on a website here pretty soon, welcometoangola.org, I have reserved. And so here's some of the things we need prayer for. It is spiritually, it's still very dark. Repeatedly, I was told by the citizens there, they said, you must have a strong prayer life, have good prayer support. There's a lot of spiritual attacks and just dangers there. And so please pray for that God would cut through that darkness, that he would protect us. And also, not just spiritually, but physically, not just from the creepy crawlies, but just the normal broken arms and broken heads and all the sorts of things that can happen. The nearest good hospital is something like 6 hours away on a good day, and so we just pray for safety, pray for the visa process. It has been an eye-opening process. I know every missionary says pray for our visa process. I now know why they say that, because every step seems like a miracle of bureaucracy and the Postal Service, really, to get everything where it's supposed to be and everything approved. It's been eye-opening to see. Pray the Lord would give us language acquisition. We need to learn Portuguese at the very least, maybe Luchazi, maybe the Bushman language of Khoisan, which is that clicky language where you use your and that sort of thing. So that's totally foreign to us. So we'd like to learn it, but we want the Lord's leading as to when. We don't want to take on too much right away. Pray that we would find our role, like in ministry. You saw the list. They have a lot that we could do. We can't just sign up for everything. We'd be exhausted. So we need to find out, Lord, what would you have for us? We have our skills. We have our preconceived notions, but where would we best fit in? I never would have guessed that being stuck there for 2 weeks because of COVID would be so beneficial. So we can't tell. We can't know what the best role is. We need prayer to find that out. And again, we're moving hopefully by the end of the summer. We have all the packing, all the planning. Well, we've done a lot of planning, but a lot of packing. We might have more COVID tests, which 6 of us, that would be more challenging. And then that we would just become acclimated to the culture, to the weather, and all that sort of thing. And so that's what we have. Are there any questions about anything that we're going to go do? Their currency is called the Kwanza. It actually is the dollar is fairly strong against it even now, so that helps a little bit too with the cost. And then of course the fact that Vessel has that house, that will save us a tremendous amount of money there as well. actually the weather. I know people have asked about the weather. It can get, in the winter, which is the dry season, it can get down to about 40 degrees at night. Of course, there's no furnace, no fire or anything like that, so it's just a lot of blankets and that sort of thing. And then during the summertime, which is the wet season, it rarely gets over about 95 degrees during the day. So we actually get hotter here and colder here, but we're dry here, of course, which makes a big, big difference. And they have an elevation of 4,400 feet, so that's familiar elevation to what we're used to. Any other thoughts or questions? There were not, but there are now in the house they're building for us. They had no doors. It did not have a floor. It was just a dirt floor. And there were not windows, but he's getting all that done. The floors are in, so the pipes must be in too if the floors are in. I did have a brief story on that. They had built at least the walls up to the height they wanted and started on the roof. And Vessel went in there and he said, these ceilings are too low. So they took everything down, built the walls back up some more, added those buttresses like you saw, and so now it's got a nice vaulted ceiling which will help with the heat. And it's much more airy, much more like a modern home, really. It's really quite nice. We're looking forward to living in that house. It was missing several panes in the window, so I brought some plexiglass to help fill in some of the gaps and things like that. So we're doing what we can to bring useful things. Any other questions? Really appreciate the opportunity to be here to present what we're doing. We're not really sure what it's going to look like. This is totally foreign to anything we've ever thought of before. But like Carmen said, God said, I even have your death. Whenever that is, I know when that's going to be. You don't have to worry about all these details. We're going to take care of you. He's going to take care of us, whatever that means. And so we're excited to see what that means. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for presenting that to us. So now, Pastor Eric, and I think that you have some pictures that you have in the material.
Yes, we have a card. Please pick up one of those. It has our address, the correspondence. It does not have on the back. It was not running when we made the card. So yeah, please take a card, take a look at the currency there, the birthday card they made for me, a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
Please stop by there.
Pick up a credit card on your way out. Don't take the money. And